Welcome to the channel, everybody. Mike here, and today we're going to get into another one of the small ones in the way of the Beretta APX A1 Compact. Now, I slept on the APX series for a little bit, but after testing a couple of other ones, being the APX A1 full size and the APX Tactical, I just had to test this one out because they seem to be an absolutely exceptional value for what they come with in an overall package and the way they perform out on the range. And the best part of models like the APX A1 series, it is a chassis or like a fire control unit style system. So basically the whole fire control group in there can be removed, put in a different frame. And that really opens up a lot of opportunity and ability to kind of have more for less because you can get different grip modules, colors, whatever you are into. But that is a huge thing for me. And I think a lot more pistols are going to start doing that in the future because more and more are coming out that have fire control units or chassis-based systems. And since the other two in the APX line that I tested, the A1 and the Tactical model, performed like champs out there, I just had to get my hands on the Compact and see if it was going to turn out the same. I gotta give a huge shout out to all of my Patreons. You guys are a huge support structure for the channel here. I thank you for everything that you do supporting me here, and you make a lot of this content here possible. And also to the sponsor of today's video, which is HRT Tactical. HRT makes those soft goods for your hard lifestyle. They are my chosen plate carrier. It's what I use personally and professionally out there for work. Great stuff at costs you can actually afford, and overall very well thought out because the people that design it and sell it are end users themselves. If you were in the need for kit, make sure you check out HRT. Let's go ahead and tackle the range performance on this one first because that's where the rubber meets the road. And a huge thank you to the Scottsdale Gun Club for allowing me to use their indoor range while it was 120 degrees out there in the summer, because nobody wants a heat stroke, right? Out on the range, the first thing I find with the APX series is it has a very natural point of aim for me. So the ergonomics just fit me. If you like a less aggressive grip angle than say something like a Glock, the APX series of pistols is one that you might be interested in. But one thing we need to talk about right up front is, since this is a smaller pistol, this is a compact style design, generally you're gonna have a little bit more maybe of that felt recoil. So as you press out and you pull that trigger, you might see more muzzle rise, or it might feel a little bit more of a harsh recoil impulse. So as a generality, the smaller the pistol gets, usually you will have more muzzle rise and a higher felt recoil. That's not always the case, but it's a generality. So let's check in on a little bit of that muzzle rise right now. Now, as you can see, overall for the size that this thing is, I think it did very well out there. Now, some have less muzzle rise and maybe a little bit less felt recoil, but every pistol is going to perform differently. All I can tell you is this thing was very easy to control out there. Even firing this thing one-handed, I found it to be completely controllable out there, and that's probably going to be for most people out there. Some of that will come down to your training experience, your grip, and how well you are able to grip and control this thing, hand strength, all those things. But in general, it's not going to be uncontrollable in any way, even though it is a much smaller pistol than say the full size or the full size Tactical. So overall, she is smooth out there, whether you're firing it one-handed, two-handed, transitioning from target to target, and overall the angles are very natural. Now, if you guys like content like this and seeing things and getting good information that you can make an informed decision on about things you might be interested in out there in the 2A world, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Not only is that a huge structure of support here for me, but it helps the 2A community in general. And if you guys at any point are interested in anything you see here in the video today, I will post links down below at the build list so you can do your own research on things like that and figure out if it's gonna work for you. As far as how I ran this thing out on the range, I do the same things I like to do when I'm testing any pistol for the first, say, like 500-ish rounds. I ran it through some transition drills, I ran it through some build drills, just running, pushing out 6 rounds. And overall it performed well. I find that it aims just extremely naturally for me. Those ergonomics are great. It ran flawlessly on all the ammunition that I tried through it, whether it was 115 grain basic ball ammunition training ammo, 124 grain NATO ammo, or 124 grain plus P self-defense ammo. I did not have any problems with the functionality of any of that ammunition. One of the other things I noticed right away was it just seemed to be a great overall size in my hand, as you can see right here. Not too big, not too small. And overall, the controls were just very easy to use out there, whether I was transitioning, changing magazines, you know, activating the slide stop, slide release in there. It seemed to be, even though it is a smaller pistol, that the controls were easy to use. And a big benefit for me is if I can activate that magazine release here without having to break my grip too much. So some pistols, you have to really come off that grip, release the mag, then remarry that grip, reacquire everything, get back out there and go to work. So with this one, you can see that's my primary grip right there. And I just barely have to break it like this to actuate the magazine release. So I do have a little bit of larger hands, as you can see right here. But overall, that is a huge benefit. And as far as the slide stop, slide release, it just seemed to be in the right place, whether I was using it right-handed, left-handed, and it was just easy to use. And having a pistol with easy controls to use is a huge plus. And speaking of magazines, I did test the full-size APX A1 and the APX A1 Tactical, the big 21 rounders, in this thing out there in the range, and they both ran flawlessly. So if you already have an APX A1 or the tactical version with the bigger magazines, they will fit here and they will work in here. So you do get a little bit of that cross size compatibility, at least when it comes to the magazines, because, you know, gives you a little bit more pez on the range to dispense, a little bit more fun, a little less time reloading and doing some drills. If you want to just go out there and get some good practice with, say, your trigger or something, you can load one of the big mags in there, go to work and work on some of those more finite skills. Now, as far as the smaller magazines, they work just fine as well, obviously. The base plate does cut up a little bit into the grip, as you can kind of see right there. So if you've got big behemoth monster bare hands, you might catch the magazine a little bit on the bottom, but overall, I didn't find it to be an issue out there in any way, even though it is a shorter grip and my pinky does cover the bottom of the factory magazine plate. You still just take the pinky off and the mag comes right out. Now, after running this thing for just around or just shy of 500 rounds, there are three things that really stood out to me. The first of which is going to be the angles and kind of ergonomics of the pistol. I found those angles to be very natural to where my wrists want to be, where my elbows want to be, and that helps me just align those sights perfectly on target when I press the pistol out. Also, the controls just seem to be right where I want them, and the takedown lever up here, if you're right-handed because it's only one-sided, is a great place to get some extra traction with your thumb. You can lay on that thing right there like a gas pedal and really help control the muzzle rise a little bit. Number two on this is going to be the texture on here. So I'm a huge fan of like sandpaper style texture. It seems to do best with me, but they've added a good amount in the front and the back of some deep hard checkering, which again is going to help you control that recoil impulse. You do have more texture out on the front right here, but again, that takedown lever is just a great place to rest your thumb and get a little bit more control out of this compact pistol. And the last thing that really stood out to me is the trigger guard right here. So it's bigger than some other compact pistols without being too overly big. What do I mean by that? So I've got long fingers and large, thick fingers. So if you look right there, I can come off the frame, get right in there with no problem. And if I'm wearing gloves, I've got space. Not every pistol gives me that. Some pistols, the trigger guard is sloped up so fast and so harsh right here that I drag my trigger finger on it, and that causes me to slap the trigger even harder, at least on that first trigger pull. And then some of them are so tight that if I wore a glove, I probably couldn't get my finger in there and effectively run that pistol the way I wanted it to, because my glove would be getting caught all over here and probably under the trigger and all that stuff. So those are the three things when actually running this out there that really did stand out to me right off the bat. Now, I know a lot of you out there are already asking the very valid question of how is that trigger? So it is definitely better than some, and you know, maybe not quite as good at others, but we have to do some trigger pulls on this so you can see where it's pulling out. It is broken in quite nice as compared to when I first got it, and then take an overall good look at this thing and what you're going to get with it. All right, let's go ahead and check out what we're going to get with the APX A1 Compact. Of course, you're going to get the polymer case from Beretta. You will obviously get your APX A1 pistol. You will get this magazine in there, and you'll have a spare, which is in the closet right now. Speed loader, lock, little cleaning brush, all of your back straps that you can custom fit to you, and then all of your literature and everything that you would normally get with a pistol. So I think that covers what you're going to get with it. We'll get that out of the way, and we'll move on with the APX A1 and what we're actually going to get here. So from the feeder to the spitter, let's talk about this. You will get two 15-round metal magazines, which have worked very well out there on the range. You get the kind of standard inlaid back straps. The other one will have kind of more of a beaver tail to it. Very nice sandpaper style grip texture. Deep checkering on the back right there. I'll try and get you the best look I can, but it is very aggressive texturing on the back. Kind of a medium sandpaper on the side up here around the mag release, high up towards the slide. And then again, really, really aggressive checkered texturing in the front. Kind of very 1911-ish checkering right there. Overall, a great amount of grip there. And it is a little bit more of kind of a neutral grip angle once you get your hand up in there. As compared to some other things out in the market. And again, a very deep area to get the web of your hand up in there. And that's just gonna help control recoil by putting all of that area up into the back of the pistol. You will have a double undercut trigger guard from the factory, which is very nice. A mostly flat face trigger, which does go all the way sub flush on the trigger shoe safety. We'll do some pulls here in a second. You get all that checkering linear lines here on the front of the trigger guard, which is good. And the trigger guard is a great overall size. Even for longer fingers there, you can see coming off this, I'm immediately in there. I'm not catching this like I do on some other compact pistols. It's easy to get in there, and there's room, say if I'm wearing gloves where other trigger guards are very small, yet it's not overly big. Multi-slot accessory rail out front, which is obviously always a good option. You will get a swappable magazine release, so left, right, but this is an ambidextrous pistol because you get your slide stop, slide release on both sides. Takedown lever right there, which is also great for recoil control if you get your thumb on the top of it. Front serrations, rear serrations here, some grooves up on the front. You can work that slide pretty much any way or anywhere you want it. It's going to make that easy. The coating they use, I think it's called Aqua Coat or something like that. It's a Beretta thing. You've got a decent amount of logos going all the way around that slide on both sides. Numerical stuff going on, so pretty used to that. APX out there in the front. You do get a little bit more texture up here in the front for those reference points. And then you're going to have that takedown push button right there for the takedown lever. So overall, solid. The barrel is going to be everything you're going to need it to be on there. It's going to be as accurate as any of you out there are going to be. You get metal sights here, which are going to be darked out rear right there, and then a red fiber optic front. Great metal sights from the factory. Optics plates are not included with the pistol. It will come with just a standard block plate, and then you can order whatever optic plate you need for this. Overall, size-wise, fits good in the hand. You can kind of see right there, she is a little thick compared to some other things. You know, some things are as thin as my finger, like the Arex, where this is more Glock-ish in overall size. Now, I broke this down off camera so YouTube doesn't get mad, but also on the back here, you will have a striker indicator. So that's good to know as well. Pretty standard looking stuff in here. This is your striker safety block right there. Traditional dual captured recoil spring. Everything looks normal in there. Inside the frame is where a little bit of the magic is. You can see these massively long rails in there, which are not only good for the longevity of the pistol and slide, but also rails that long and that thick do help control the recoil of the pistol. Takedown lever here, and you'll notice that this thing looks like a big chunk of metal in there because this whole metal piece is the actual firearm. You can take that out, put it in a different grip module, which Beretta does have some available. But overall, very cool design, and that's where a lot of pistols are going. I'm gonna throw this back together and we're gonna do trigger pulls, but I wanted you to see what this thing was on the inside. All right, so she is back together. Let's check that trigger. A little bit of take up, which is natural for striker rigs. We will have a little bit of creep and a break. So overall, kind of a roll, not a ton, maybe a couple of millimeters. So that is the hard wall, roll and a break. We'll check the reset here. It's pretty short. Right there, try to go as slow as I could. It's tactile, it's audible. You're gonna know it's resetting on you, and the break is not bad. It has smoothed out quite a bit, and I think with about another 500 or so rounds, it'll smooth out more. Battery went dead on the light, so we'll go ahead and do our trigger pulls. I'm using the Timney manual trigger gauge right here, and I gotta kind of lift this up to make sure that I'm not dragging this edge on the table here. Get in there. So that one pulled right at about 6.5 pounds. Try and get you guys a good look at that. Honestly, it feels more like 5.5, but we'll do 3 pulls. I'll do 2 from the center, and then I'll do one a little lower. So that one was right at about 7. I'm gonna do one low on the trigger, which is generally where I try to get my finger, and you'll see the difference and why it probably feels closer to 5.5 or so for me. And it goes down to roughly about 5.5, so that's probably about 5 pounds and 10 ounces or something like that. So it doesn't quite feel that heavy to me. Feels lighter, but that's what the gauge is telling us. So that's what we're gonna have to go with. I know some of you need that spec sheet. All right, solid stuff there all around. Let's talk about, did I have any issues with the APX A1 Compact here? So ammunition-wise, felt recoil on the range, everything there went 100%. 115 grain, 124 grain, 124 grain NATO, 124 grain plus P, and I think I put some 147s through it. 100% reliable. I did have one issue, and it came in the way of a bad follower here. I'll roll in some B-roll of you, and you can actually see where the frame up inside was dragging on the top of that follower because the follower would pop straight up and it would kind of just get stuck. So if it didn't work all the way, it would do that right there. So I kept this magazine specifically for the video so I could show you that. It's the only one I've had the problem with, and I've had a bunch of different magazines from Beretta now. I think I had to stretch the spring on one of the tactical magazines, but this is the first one I've ever seen do this. I reached out to them, they did send me brand new magazines, and it had 0 issues, but it did come up. Nobody gets a pass, so you guys deserve to know that. And I'm really curious to know in the comments down below, have any of you seen it where it did that, where the follower came up and kind of caught the slide? It worked perfectly while loaded, but on that last round, sometimes it would kind of just not lock back, or it would kind of get stuck halfway there. So it can happen. It's a QC issue, and I think it's just kind of my turn to get a bad mag, I guess. We are now at the point where, would I change anything on the APX A1 Compact here? Because like I said, nobody gets a pass on the channel, and yes, there are 2 things I would love to see, and this is something that's pretty much across most pistols out there these days, at least. First one, 3 mags. 3 mags is always the magic number, right? I say that with pretty much everything. This is really geared kind of like a duty or tactical style pistol. And I would love to see 3 mags, right? Because you can very well carry this on a gun belt, and for a primary pistol, it's a good overall size, especially if you got smaller hands. It's like Glock 19 style size, so it's really good to go there. Which then leads me to believe you want 2 mags on your belt, 1 in the pistol. So 3 is always the magic number. But the price point, when we start talking about that, might make up for a little bit. But that is just the magic number. I'd love to see 3 mags, and I wish everything came with them. Even if I had to spend 20 bucks more or something, 3 is just that magic number. Now, the other thing, the sights. Again, and this is something pretty much across the firearms industry when it comes to optic ready pistols. They're great sights. They're metal, blacked out rear, high vis front there. You know, fiber optics may not be your thing, but they work great out there, especially with a blacked out rear sight. That gives me the best ability to see that as you come up, that red sight is there, the blacked out rears, it's good, it works. But the minute you throw your optic on there, you lose your iron sights because they're not tall enough. Again, this is something across the pistol world that I see companies doing. They're not putting the taller, at least mid-height sights on there to work with most optics. That is the Primary Arms Classic, a much more of a budget-friendly optic on there. It's pretty low profile, but once you add the plate and the optic, you lose your sight. So nothing specific to Beretta there. And again, even if I had to pay 20, 25, 30 bucks more, some mid-height sights, because yes, you do get to go choose your own sights. However, you buy a set of sights for 100 bucks. If you can't put them on yourself, you don't have the tool, then you got to go pay an armor who's probably going to charge you another 50 or 100 bucks to put them on. Next thing you know, you're $200 more into a pistol, or 150 at least to get the sights you want on it, when I wish we could have got them out of the factory. But again, that is pretty much the firearms industry right now wide. There's very few pistols that I see coming with those taller sights. And on the tactical model, Beretta gives you the taller sights for the optics, so I wish that would have been there. So what about that price point here on the APX A1? And I have to say, 399 bucks is the day-to-day price. And I kind of smirk at that because that's pretty exceptional for what you're getting out of the pistol. When you think about the other things out there in the market, I think the only thing that's even close to that in price range are going to be like the Canics, and that's really about it for all the good stuff that you're getting. So not only that, but up until recently, they were doing like a promo where I think it was like a $100 rebate, which means you got it for $299. That's pretty insane for getting a Beretta APX A1 for that price. I do not know if that special is still going on, but I did look at it. A ton of people, when I did my tactical review, were pointing that out. And for that price point, if this thing fits you and you like it, that is pretty exceptional. But even the $399 or $400, $425, but I think right now pretty much everywhere I've seen is $399. That's still a really solid value for what you're getting out of a really well respected manufacturer out there in the injury. It does have some modularity. You can use the mags from the bigger one if you want. Good overall design, solid trigger in there, and overall comes with most of the options we want these days, which is interchangeable back straps, optics ready, double undercuts on there, accessory rail, just good solid stuff in a pistol. Again though, I am really curious if any of you have had that magazine issue, because it seems to be the past like 2 or 3 months for me have been like my turn for quality control issues. So I had this magazine issue, and then I've got 2 other very well-known rifle manufacturers, one of which where I got some damaged parts that were missing things, and the other one of which is a really well-known company with a lot of military contracts, where the rifle was literally non-functional in the box and I had to change parts before it would actually work. That stuff will all be coming soon, but it just seems to be that it's unfortunately my turn to be the 1% that seems to be getting the QC issues. Make sure you get subbed up down below. Let me know your thoughts on the APX A1 Compact or the APX series in general. You keep doing it out on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you all on the next one.